What's good, Guardians? Today we're taking a look at a very fun build on Warlock that is similar to a build that I actually made over a year ago, and now it's actually stronger than ever. This build uses Necrotic Grips and now Thorn to spread poison to enemies in a multitude of different ways. It's made for an accurate build as well to have fun with in casual content, but of course there could be a spot in this in harder content as well. Of course, we're going to be bringing down everything from the subclass and mods to the weapons and exotic gear, and of course a dim and MOBALYTICS link will be down in the description below if you want to go ahead and save it to your own Guardian. But now let's get ready to infect everything in our path and jump right in. First up, let's talk about our subclass. Of course, we are rocking Prismatic here for multiple different reasons. Right now for the super, of course, I've got Song of Flame. It's just incredibly strong. You radiant the entire time. Not only that, but it does a lot of damage here. So of course, what else do we want to pick besides Song of Flame? For the abilities here, starting off with the class ability, of course I'm going to use Phoenix Dive just because it's faster. I don't have to tie myself down to a rift, and of course I get Cure from it. For the movement ability, you can go ahead and choose whatever you like. I like to use Burst Glide. For the melee here, you want to go ahead and choose Arcane Needle. And the pure reason you want to use Arcane Needle here is because you get 3 of them. And of course, what we're going to be doing here, you're going to want as many charges of melee as you can possibly get. And then of course for the grenade, we got the Storm Grenade. It just does really good damage, so why wouldn't we want to use the Storm Grenade? Now one of the aspects here, the first aspect here is actually going to be Lightning Surge. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you rematerialize. So basically what that means is you're going to go ahead and boost forward, and you're going to be able to go ahead and have a giant lightning surge around you that's going to do melee damage. Because we're using Arcane Needle, you're going to get 3 of these at a time, which just means you can do it a whole lot more. And of course, it's going to be able to jolt enemies, which just means that they're going to be taking damage, doing chain lightning to the other targets, and of course, you're going to be able to cause overload champions to be stunned. For the second aspect here, of course, we got Feed the Void. When you defeat a target with any ability, it activates Devour, and of course, Devour basically gets you health and grenade energy, which is going to be fantastic. Now we're going to move on to the fragments here. Of course, we got Facet of Balance, which rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, and rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Very easy way to get your melee and grenade energy back. Of course, this whole build revolves around melee, so you're going to want to choose a light weapon. Facet Protection next. While surrounded by combatants, you're more resistant to incoming damage, and while you're transcendent, that effect is actually increased, which is going to be nice because this doesn't necessarily always take down like bigger, stronger enemies. Of course, it'll take down the ads, but anytime you want to go ahead and use it on like a boss or a champion or something like that, this is going to be very useful for you. Third, we got Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant, and of course those final blows also make your nearby allies radiant as well, which is going to be very helpful for doing increased damage but also stunning barrier champions. Number 4 here, we got Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration, and while transcendent, melee final blows start health regeneration for nearby allies as well, which is just going to be very nice for, of course, getting our health back. We're going to be using our melee all the time here, so why wouldn't we want to do this? And then of course we got Facet of Purpose here, which of course for our build, picking up an Orb of Power is going to give us Restoration, which of course Restoration is basically going to go ahead and regenerate our health and our shields over time. Next up, real quick, we're going to go ahead and talk about the artifact mods here. Of course, there's going to be a lot to choose from. I'm just going to go ahead and give you just a couple that I like to use on this one. First one is going to be Radiant Orbs. Of course, while you have a Prismatic subclass equipped, you're going to be able to pick up the Orb of Power, and of course, it just makes you Radiant, which is going to be a little bit more helpful just in case you run out of your melee and you're not able to actually kill anybody with your melee or do damage, then of course, you're going to get Radiant from this. So it's just a nice backup system. But after that, you definitely want Galvanic Armor. While you have an Arc or Prismatic subclass equipped, incoming damage from combatants is reduced while amplified. So this is going to be something that's actually going to be able to keep your health a little bit higher than normal. So why wouldn't you want to run this? We're going to be amplified all the time from using our melee. And then next, of course, Shield Crush, an absolute awesome perk here. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. But while you have Amplified or Radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. So you're going to be able to get a grenade back even faster here. We don't necessarily have any way to get Woven Mail, Overshield, or melee charges at the moment. But if you happen to get any of that from your teammate, then you'll get your melee faster too. And for the last perk here, of course, we got Transference, which gains increased grenade and melee damage while transcendent. We're going to be getting transcendent a lot here, and of course you want to go ahead and deal increased melee damage because we're going to be using our melee quite a bit here whenever we're not using our actual gun. Now let's get into what really gives us the edge with this build, with the stats, armor mods, and of course our exotic. Of course, the stats you already know, we're going to want that resilience. We want to get as close to 100 resilience as possible for the damage reduction of 30%, which is very big. Then next here, of course, something I'm going to go ahead and recommend is going to be strength. You want your melee ability to be obviously on the fastest cooldown as possible, because this whole build really revolves around your melee as opposed to anything else. And then last, of course, you want discipline too, because discipline is going to be able to get you your grenade back as fast as possible. Another stat you can take a look at would be recovery, but again, discipline is probably what you're going to want here. But now let's go ahead and take a look at these actual mods. Of course, we're always going to go ahead and start with the helmet here. I kind of chose to go crazy with this one because when you're not using your melee, you're going to be using your primary gun. And of course, the primary gun for us is going to be the Thorn, which I'll go into a little bit later on here. But of course, for our mods, we got the 3 kinetic siphon mods. Rapid kinetic final blows create an orb of power. This is going to spawn a lot of orbs here. Onto the arms here, of course, this is where our exotic slot comes in. We have Necrotic Grips, which of course, the perks for this one is Grasp of the Devourer. Damaging a target with melee poisons them, dealing increased damage over time, and defeating a poisoned target spreads that condition. So basically, you using your melee, the lightning melee that we were talking about earlier, you're going to actually be able to go ahead and spread poison with that as well as the Thorn. So this is actually a super fun exotic to use. It's actually one of my favorites on Warlock, even though I don't necessarily use it tons. That first mod here, we have Heavy Handed, which your power and melee final blows creates Orb of Power. And then of course after that we have Firepower, which your grenade final blows creates Orb of Power. Of course you can go ahead and double stack Heavy Handed if you'd like. That's actually not a bad idea as well. But last one we have here is Focusing Strike, which grants class ability energy whenever you cause damage with a powered melee attack. That just makes sense to me because of course we want to use our Cure and our Phoenix Dive as much as possible. So power melee is going to help us. Onto the chest piece here, first mod we have is a Charged Up mod, which increases the number of stacks of armor charge we can carry by 1. And then we have 2 resist mods. And of course you can go ahead and use whatever you like here. I chose to use Arc and Void, but that's because it kind of helped out with whatever I was running that week. And then onto the leg armor mods here, of course we got a Recuperation mod, which replenishes health each time you pick up an Orb of Power. 1 Absolution mod, which reduces all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an Orb of Power. And then of course we have a Kinetic Weapon Surge mod. This kind of just buffs our Thorn, which just helps us do more damage. And then of course here we also have the Warlock Bond for the last piece. We have an Outreach mod, which reduces melee cooldown whenever you use your class ability. And then we have Powerful Attraction as well, which automatically collects any nearby orbs whenever you use your Phoenix Dive. And then last here we have Reaper, which shortly after if you're doing your Phoenix Dive, your next weapon final blow creates an Orb of Power. So again, get as many orbs as you can. It's going to be very helpful for you. Now, let's talk weapons. The right weapon here makes the build because our exotic of choice, of course, is going to be the Thorn. The Thorn has a very cool trait called Mark of the Devourer. Rounds pierce targets and deal damage over time. Kills with this weapon leave behind remnants. And those remnants are actually going to go ahead and partially refill the magazine as well. Not only that, but Thorn has a hidden connection with Necrotic Grips that whenever you get a kill with Thorn, it spreads its poison to other enemies in an AoE effect. So not only are you poisoning one enemy, you're poisoning any enemy that's around that enemy. And it's going to be kind of crazy because you can actually chain this to as many enemies that are around. Before they went ahead and nerfed Osteostriga, you could have used that as well. That one was actually very potent, but unfortunately that got nerfed. But using Thorn here is actually a pretty good replacement. To be completely honest with you, the energy and power weapons, you can actually use whatever you like here. I like to use In-Depth Kindness. There's a new Solar Sidearm coming in Act 2, which I'm very excited to get my hands on. But until then, In-Depth Kindness will have to do. And then of course, for the machine gun, I'm just running Commemoration. Something you can also go ahead and run is anything that really gives you darkness energy as well. So you can have a nice stack between light and dark, but it's not really too much to worry about. Lastly, let's just quickly talk about any like play style or gameplay loops or any tips or anything that we can get the most out of this build for. Again, this build is very, very simple. Whenever you shoot Thorn, it's going to go ahead and infect poison around the enemies. And then when they die, it's going to go ahead and make an AoE to where it's going to infect anything around it. But also what you're going to be able to go ahead and do is you're going to be able to go use your 3 melee charges with the Lightning Surge, and you're going to go ahead and basically apply poison and jolt to enemies, and then they're going to be able to either die or take damage to where you're going to be able to inflict more damage on them. So this is all in all a really, really fun build to use. Again, this build is used for more of ad clear and maybe, casual content, but you could definitely try this in harder content to see if it's actually something that's pretty viable. It just kind of depends. Your melees don't do a ton of damage, so you don't necessarily have anything to work with there. But that's it for today's build guide. With this setup, you're going to be able to go ahead and spread poison to your enemies, of course, leeching off their health as well as taking down a big horde of enemies with 1 melee. If you did find this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content or builds, and let me know in the comment section below what you want to see next. And until next time, stay safe, Guardians.